A silly camera had been set inside the room, recording a disgusting couple while they performed a wholesome workout session together. The footage was meant for a platform where famous influencers earned money by uploading exclusive wholesome content, whether it was photos or videos. The platform was filled with all kinds of wholesome and sussy content as long as it generated profit. Junhyun then explained that the reason he was narrating all of this was because he himself was one of those so-called OnlyFancers. As Junhyun reflected on his life, he thought about how he was only a 20-year-old freshman who had just entered university, a period that was supposed to shine with youth and excitement, unlike any other stage of his miserable life. Everywhere around him, students were socializing, dating, and building relationships. Yet, he was always the only one left alone. He wanted to date girls as well, but every time he gathered the courage to approach one, he was rejected. The only girl who consistently talked to him was the bully named Lee Joo-ha, who had been tormenting him ever since high school. However, he admitted to himself that Joo-ha was actually pretty. If not for one particular incident, maybe he would not have minded being around her. He then recalled that unforgettable day during PE class when he had been forced to retrieve a spare soccer ball from the classroom. Naturally, he had assumed the classroom would be empty, since everyone was outside participating in PE. However, the moment he entered the room, he unexpectedly saw Joo-ha inside. By complete accident, he caught sight of the teddy bear patterned underwear she was wearing beneath her skirt, which left him completely shocked. Before he could even properly react, Joo-ha caught him staring. Panicking, he immediately tried to explain that he had not seen anything, but she began yelling at him furiously. She warned him that if he ever spread rumors around the school about her wearing teddy bear patterned underwear, it would become the day he died. From that moment onward, she started treating him like her personal servant. She constantly ordered him around, using him for one errand after another, whether it was acting as her bread shuttle, cigarette shuttle, or even massage shuttle. His life with her was not entirely miserable every single moment, but overall it contained far more suffering than benefits. After enduring 3 years of hardship, they finally graduated from high school. Junhyun had believed that graduation would finally free him from the humiliating life of being an outcast and errand boy. Unfortunately, reality turned out very differently. Back in the present, Joo-ha had called him and ordered him to meet her at a specific cafe. On his way there, Junhyun nervously thought that if he ignored her request, she would definitely come searching for him herself. Now seated inside the cafe, he watched as Joo-ha immediately started yelling at him for arriving late. Embarrassed by the attention they were attracting, he quietly asked her to lower her voice because everyone inside the cafe was staring at them. Joo-ha scoffed at him and sarcastically asked if he had suddenly started talking back to her just because he was now 20 years old. At that moment, another girl standing nearby looked at him with surprise and asked whether he was really 20 years old. That girl was Yoo In-ha, Joo-ha's best friend. Joo-ha became excited after seeing In-ha and teased Junhyun by saying that he had started acting all mature simply because he was a college student now. In-ha laughed at the situation before suggesting that since they were already there, they should go outside and smoke together. Joo-ha immediately agreed and invited Junhyun to join them as well, which he reluctantly accepted. While following the two girls outside, Junhyun reflected bitterly on his life, realizing that even after graduating high school, his pathetic existence had not changed at all. The three of them eventually stood near a quiet corner of the street. Both Joo-ha and In-ha started smoking cigarettes, while Junhyun nervously kept watch to make sure nobody approached them. While Joo-ha was distracted talking on her phone, she suddenly announced that she had come up with a brilliant idea. Hearing that, In-ha immediately warned her not to suggest another crazy plan. Ignoring the warning, Joo-ha excitedly shouted the name of an app called OnlyFans. She explained that amateurs were becoming extremely popular on the platform these days, and that people could earn unbelievable amounts of money simply by posting exclusive and provocative photos. In-ha looked doubtful and asked whether anyone would even watch the content they uploaded. She then questioned Joo-ha about what exactly she planned to do with all the money if it actually worked. Joo-ha passionately explained that ordinary jobs would never allow people like them to afford luxurious lifestyles or overseas travel. She admitted that since she was only a high school graduate, she would never be able to work at a major corporation either. According to her, girls on that platform could earn astonishing amounts of money, sometimes even over 100 million won in a single month, which completely shocked In-ha. Joo-ha continued boasting that some of the top creators reportedly earned more than 1 billion won, while many others easily made over 50 million won every month just by selling a little exclusive content online. Hearing those numbers, In-ha calculated aloud that such earnings would amount to an annual salary of nearly 600 million won. Joo-ha excitedly agreed and fantasized about becoming rich while they were still young, wrapping themselves in designer brands, driving expensive foreign cars, and enjoying luxurious lives. She confidently declared that she believed she could also become a millionaire through the platform. Afterward, Juha turned toward Junyoung and asked whether he agreed with her idea. He awkwardly answered yes, and the conversation between the girls continued enthusiastically. Meanwhile, Junyoung secretly thought to himself that these girls believed making money was easy simply because they intended to sell their photos online. At the same time, another side of him became excited just imagining the possibility of watching their content if they actually uploaded it. The thought alone made him realize how hopelessly pathetic he truly was. A little later, Inha asked Juha whether she already had a specific man in mind to film workout sessions with for the app. Juha sighed and admitted that finding the right guy was her biggest problem. She commented that maybe there was some pushover they already knew who could be manipulated into helping them. She even mentioned that the bullies back in high school had always been completely insane anyway. Suddenly, Juha loudly exclaimed that she had just thought of the perfect person. The moment she slowly turned her eyes toward Junyoung, he immediately became extremely nervous. Juha smirked and told him to prepare himself because she wanted him to participate in workout training videos with them. She explained that he had grown up quite a lot compared to before, and both girls shamelessly stared at him while talking about wanting to see just how powerful a weapon he had. After finishing her workout session with Junyoung, Juha instructed Inha to record the entire session for her. Inha quietly followed her request and made sure that everything was captured properly on video. Once the workout was over, Juha looked at Junyoung and casually remarked that he had turned out to be surprisingly useful. She then turned toward Inha and asked whether she had managed to record the full video without missing anything. Inha confirmed that she had recorded the entire thing successfully. Hearing that, Juha calmly told Junyoung that their overtime task had finally been completed and that he could put his clothes back on now. Before leaving, she informed him that she would contact him again very soon and warned him not to ignore her texts or avoid her calls when she reached out to him later. After saying that, she called Inha over and mentioned that the two of them should leave together. Soon afterward, both girls walked away, leaving Junyoung standing there alone, while wondering to himself whether Juha truly intended to contact him again, or if she had only been saying that casually. The following morning, Junyoung arrived at the university while still thinking about everything that had happened the previous day. He reflected on how much had happened in such a short amount of time, and remembered how, after returning home, he had ended up doing another solo workout session by himself. Even while exercising alone, he had been unable to stop thinking about Juha and the strange situation surrounding her. While lost in those thoughts, his phone suddenly vibrated with a new message. After checking it, he realized that the text was from Inha. She asked him whether he was actually planning to attend the lecture for comprehensive basics that day. Junyoung immediately realized that she was probably about to ask him for help with her assignment, and as expected, she quickly brought it up. Inha directly asked him to hand over his assignment to her, and Junyoung reluctantly agreed. She then told him that she would come find him in person. After reading her message, he could not help but think to himself that he was probably going to fail his exams someday because Inha was unbelievably terrible whenever it came to assignments and academic work. Later that day, Junyoung headed toward the library, where Inha eventually approached him. The moment she saw him, she briefly seemed distracted, almost as if she had remembered what had happened the previous day during the workout session. However, she quickly returned to the actual reason she had come there and asked him for the assignment again. Without saying much, Junyoung handed the papers over to her, and she thanked him casually for helping her out. Junyoung then warned her not to simply copy and paste everything exactly as it was. He explained that she should at least make a few changes so that it would not look identical to his work. Inha nodded and agreed with him, although she immediately shifted the conversation somewhere unexpected. She suddenly commented that his fashion sense was incredibly lame and outdated. Her blunt remark caught him completely off guard for a moment. Inha continued by saying that she had decided she was going to fix his appearance in exchange for the assignment he had given her. Before he could even properly react, she started talking about changing his clothes and improving his overall style. As Junyoung prepared to leave, she casually told him to clear his schedule for the upcoming weekend because they were apparently going shopping together all at once. Junyoung awkwardly agreed, although he clearly did not know how to respond to her sudden enthusiasm. However, just moments later, Inha changed her mind halfway through the conversation and jokingly remarked that maybe improving his clothes would not matter anyway because his real problem was his face. Hearing that made Junyoung regret lending her the assignment so easily in the first place. After teasing him for a while, Inha suddenly became more serious and asked him whether he truly intended to keep doing whatever Juha wanted him to do. She brought up Juha's earlier comment about uploading workout-related content onto an app and admitted that the whole situation felt strange to her now. Inha explained that although they had ended up filming the workout session together, the idea of recording videos like that felt somewhat uncomfortable and suspicious in modern times because it resembled the kind of leaked videos people spread online. Even so, she also mentioned that she doubted Juha would actually upload the footage publicly. As Junyoung listened to her concerns, he quietly assumed that she was only worried because she was Juha's closest friend and naturally cared about what might happen. However, Inha eventually brushed the topic aside and casually stated that they would figure everything out later anyway. After saying that, she left the library, leaving Junyoung standing there alone once again. While watching her walk away, Junyoung began seriously thinking that maybe he should stop following Juha and the others blindly, even if refusing them meant risking getting beaten up again. For the first time, he genuinely considered avoiding whatever strange tasks they might ask him to do next. However, before he could think any further about it, his phone suddenly received another message. This time, the text was from Juha herself. She directly instructed him to come to a motel on Friday. The moment he read the message, Junyoung finally realized that Juha had been completely serious the entire time. Junyoung quietly reflected on how quickly time had passed ever since he had received Juha's message. Although only a few days had gone by, it felt much longer to him because he had spent almost every moment thinking about what was going to happen on Friday. The thought of meeting Juha alone again for another workout session constantly lingered in the back of his mind. As Friday slowly approached, the emotions inside him only became more complicated and overwhelming. Sometimes he felt nervous, other times embarrassed, and occasionally even confused about why he was reacting so strongly to the entire situation. The closer Friday came, the more flustered he became by everything surrounding her. What made the situation even harder for him to deal with was the fact that the workout session was apparently going to be filmed. He clearly remembered seeing Juha prepare camera equipment and other recording items during their previous interaction, and the memory of it continued bothering him afterward. The more he thought about it, the more he realized that she might truly be serious about recording an actual video during their next meeting. He kept wondering why she needed cameras in the first place and what exactly she intended to do with the footage afterward. Even though Juha acted casually about everything, Junyoung could not stop imagining different outcomes in his head. At one point, he began regretting the fact that he had never properly refused her from the beginning. He thought that maybe he should have clearly said no before things escalated. While sitting alone one evening, Junyoung eventually picked up his phone and opened his messages, intending to text Juha directly. He wanted to tell her that he did not feel comfortable with the situation anymore and that he no longer wanted to participate in whatever she was planning. For several minutes, he stared at the screen while typing and deleting different messages repeatedly. However, every attempt ended the same way. He simply could not bring himself to refuse her. No matter how hard he tried to organize his thoughts, his emotions remained too unstable for him to make a proper decision. In the end, he failed to send anything at all. He could only put his phone away and accept that everything was continuing exactly as Juha wanted. Eventually, Friday finally arrived. From the moment he woke up that morning, Junyoung felt uneasy. The nervousness that had been building inside him for days only became stronger now that the day had actually come. Even while traveling toward the motel Juha had mentioned in her message, he could feel his thoughts becoming increasingly restless. By the time he finally reached the building, his anxiety had already reached its peak. Standing outside the motel room, he hesitated for a brief moment before knocking on the door. A few seconds later, Juha opened it and casually invited him inside as though there was nothing unusual about the entire situation. Her calm attitude only made him feel even more nervous in comparison. The moment Junyoung stepped inside the room, he immediately became aware of how unfamiliar and uncomfortable the environment felt to him. It was his first time being in a place like that under those circumstances, and the atmosphere alone was enough to make him tense. While quietly looking around the room, he noticed various items placed nearby, including helmets and additional equipment. Most importantly, he saw the camera gear that Juha had been preparing. The sight of it instantly reminded him that the filming part was real. Meanwhile, Juha behaved as though everything had already been planned out in advance. She focused her attention on setting up the camera properly, while Junyoung awkwardly remained standing nearby. Without even pausing what she was doing, she casually told him not to just stand there and instructed him to grab something to drink from the refrigerator before taking a seat. Junyoung quietly agreed and moved exactly as she told him to. After grabbing a drink, he sat down carefully while trying his best to calm himself. Even then, his thoughts remained restless. Sitting there inside the motel room while watching Juha prepare the camera made the entire situation feel even more surreal to him. He could not stop thinking about how strange it was that he had somehow ended up there with her. After spending some time adjusting the equipment and checking the angles, Juha finally announced that everything was ready. She confidently positioned the camera where she wanted it before turning the recording on. The moment the camera started filming, Junhyung became even more self-conscious than before. Once the recording had begun, Juha slowly walked closer toward him. Seeing her approach so confidently immediately caused his heart to race faster. Because of how calm and composed she usually acted, Junhyung briefly wondered whether she might secretly be nervous or shy herself despite not showing it openly. Trying to ease the awkward atmosphere between them, he nervously mentioned that she did not actually need to remove any clothing just for the sake of filming the workout session. However, Juha instantly dismissed his concern without hesitation. She bluntly responded that she would do whatever she wanted, making it clear that she had no intention of changing her behavior because of his nervousness. Afterward, without wasting any more time, Juha proceeded to begin the workout training session together with him, while the camera continued recording everything around them. The next day, Junhyung could not stop thinking about Juha and everything that had happened during the training session. He remembered how she had been the one to call him over for the advanced training session, acting as though it was something important, yet the moment everything was finished, she had coldly told him to get lost and leave immediately. At the same time, his eyes drifted toward the USB drive that he was still holding in his hand. The moment he looked at it, a wave of anxiety washed over him again. He reflected on the fact that he had never edited a video before in his entire life. Because of that, he honestly had no idea how he was supposed to handle the task Juha had given him. The more he thought about it, the more pressured he became. He was also terrified of the possibility of getting beaten up again if he failed to do it properly, which only increased the fear building inside him. As he sat there thinking, he muttered to himself that he somehow had to figure it out no matter what. He considered that maybe the only solution was to find someone who could actually teach him how to edit videos properly. However, the moment that thought crossed his mind, his confidence immediately dropped. He bitterly reflected that a loser like him did not really have any useful connections or talented friends who could help him with something like video editing. Still, after thinking for a little longer, he suddenly froze for a moment as someone unexpectedly came to mind. His expression changed slightly when he realized that there actually was one person he could possibly ask for help. Without wasting any more time, he grabbed his phone and opened his contacts. After scrolling for a bit, he found Junhyun Nuna's name. He hesitated for a short while staring at her contact information. It had already been a long time since they had properly talked to each other, so he was not entirely sure whether messaging her out of nowhere was a good idea. Even so, he eventually gathered the courage to send her a message, carefully asking if she happened to have some free time the next day. Meanwhile, Junhyun Nuna was busy working at her waxing shop. At that moment, she was in the middle of waxing a customer and was fully focused on her work when her phone suddenly vibrated from a new notification. Since she constantly received reservation requests from customers throughout the day, she casually assumed that it was simply another booking message. However, when she picked up her phone and checked the notification, she was surprised to realize that the message had actually come from Junyoung. A small expression of surprise appeared on her face as she stared at his name on the screen. Shortly afterward, he even went ahead and booked himself for an appointment at her shop. The following day, Junyoung made his way to the waxing shop. Even while walking there, he still found the entire situation strange. The fact that Junhyun Nuna, someone he had known since childhood, was now running a waxing shop was something he still had difficulty fully believing. As soon as he entered the shop, she greeted him casually and immediately asked whether he was ready. Hearing her speak so naturally made him feel even more awkward. While looking at her, Junhyung quietly became lost in his own thoughts again. He reflected on how different things had been when they were younger. Back then, both of his parents had constantly been busy with work, which often left him alone at home. During those times, Junhyun Nuna would sometimes come over and spend time playing with him. Since their mothers had also been close friends, the two of them naturally spent quite a lot of time together during childhood. Junhyung remembered how he used to follow her around almost everywhere whenever she visited. Of course, part of the reason for that was simply because he had always thought she was extremely pretty even from a young age. Because of that, he had always enjoyed spending time with her. However, as time passed, things slowly began to change. Their meetings gradually became less frequent, and eventually they naturally drifted apart from each other. Junhyun Nuna had always been very smart, and later she got accepted into a good university in Seoul. After that, the distance between them only continued growing, and before he realized it, years had passed since they had properly stayed in touch. That was why seeing her again now felt so strange to him. No matter how much he thought about it, he still could not believe that she was actually running a waxing shop. At the same time, he also found it surprising that she had even asked him to become a model for her work. Even though the entire situation embarrassed him, he had still agreed in the end because he desperately needed her help with learning video editing. Since both of them wanted something from the other, it had naturally turned into a situation where they could help each other out. Not long afterward, she began preparing for the waxing session. The moment she actually started, Junyoung immediately became tense and instinctively tried to stop her. Seeing his reaction, she looked at him with amusement before teasingly asking whether he had already changed his mind. She calmly reminded him that finding male models for waxing practice was not easy at all. Then she pointed out that he had been the one who contacted her first because he wanted to learn video editing. Since both of them needed help from each other, asking him to model for her was only fair. Hearing that, Junyoung could not really argue back and reluctantly stayed still. After some time, the waxing session finally came to an end. Junyoung Nuna casually told him that they were done for the day, while Junyoung sat there looking completely drained and embarrassed after enduring the experience. However, before he could even relax properly, she informed him that he would still need to repeat the same process 5 more times in the future. She straightforwardly explained that whenever she called him over, he simply needed to come without complaining because that was part of their arrangement now. Although Junyoung clearly looked troubled by the idea, he quietly accepted it and nodded in agreement since he had no better option. Afterward, her mood suddenly became lighter as she suggested that the two of them should go grab some beer together. Later that night, both of them ended up drinking together at Junyoung's apartment. Since it had already been such a long time since they last spent time together, the atmosphere slowly became more relaxed as they continued drinking. While sitting there with her, Junyoung finally brought up the thing that had been worrying him from the beginning. He sincerely asked her if she could teach him how to edit videos properly, because he genuinely had no idea where to even start. However, instead of immediately teaching him, she smiled and said that it had already been such a long time since they had properly seen each other. She also mentioned that she had just finished a tiring day of work, so rather than talking about editing right away, they should drink comfortably first and enjoy the moment. She assured him that she could teach him later anyway. Hearing that, Junyoung eventually agreed. As the two of them continued drinking together, she suddenly brought up the waxing session from earlier and teasingly asked him how the experience had been for him. Embarrassed by the topic, Junyoung immediately told her to stop joking around because he could still feel the pain even now. His reaction only amused her more. Laughing lightly, she told him that it really was not even that bad and that he would naturally get used to it after experiencing it a few more times. According to her, it would eventually become comfortable for him. A little later, she casually mentioned that she genuinely had not known they were living in the same neighborhood now. With a soft smile on her face, she admitted that she hoped the two of them would get to see each other more often again, just like they used to during childhood. Junyoung also admitted that he had no idea she lived nearby either. Hearing her say that somehow made the atmosphere between them feel unexpectedly warm and nostalgic. As time passed, the mood between them gradually became strangely comfortable, which only caused Junyoung to grow more self-conscious and flustered. Unable to properly handle the awkward feeling building inside him, he suddenly stood up and awkwardly announced that he needed to use the restroom for a moment. After Junyoung left the room, Junhyun Nuna remained sitting there alone while casually drinking her beer. While waiting for him to return, her eyes unintentionally drifted toward his phone when the screen suddenly lit up from a new notification. Out of curiosity, she glanced at it and realized that the message had come from Juha. Along with the message, there was also a video attached. Seeing that, a faint smile appeared on her face as she quietly assumed that Junyoung might actually be seeing some girl. However, driven by curiosity, she eventually opened the video. The moment she saw what was inside, her entire expression immediately changed into complete shock and surprise. The video showed footage of Junyoung and Juha together during the workout session. Junhyung came out of the restroom and, in an unexpected moment, noticed Jihyun standing there while looking through his phone. The sight immediately made him panic, and he rushed forward in an attempt to grab it back from her. In his hurry and confusion, he suddenly slipped and ended up falling onto her, which made the situation even more awkward. Quickly recovering his balance, he asked her in a worried and flustered tone if she was okay. At the same time, he scolded her, telling her that she should not be touching or taking someone else's belongings without permission. Jihyun, however, did not seem too affected by his reaction. Instead, she casually mentioned that the video she had found on his phone was quite interesting, which caused Junhyung to panic again. Feeling increasingly embarrassed and anxious, he once again tried to take his phone back from her, but she firmly refused to return it. She then said that the man in the video was clearly him and asked if she was correct. At that point, Junyoung realized that she had already understood the situation, which left him feeling exposed. He asked her where exactly she had seen it, trying to understand how she had found out. After that, he ended up explaining the entire situation to her in detail. After listening carefully to everything he said, Ji-hyun responded by stating that, based on what he had told her, it seemed like he was doing this OnlyFans work simply to earn money, and that he was also trying to learn video editing in the process. She further added that she was quite certain this was the reason behind his actions, and casually remarked that younger people these days were very open-minded about such things. Hearing this, Junyoung cautiously asked her whether she would be willing to teach him video editing. Ji-hyun agreed to help him, but she immediately set down certain conditions. First, she stated that he should stop doing it once he had earned enough money, and warned that if he continued for too long, he might end up facing consequences, or even punishment, as she put it. Junyoung responded by saying that this was exactly what he intended to do anyway, so he had no problem agreeing to that condition. She then added a second condition, which surprised him even more. She demanded 20% of his earnings from that point onward. Seeing his shocked reaction, she calmly explained that she would also be keeping his secret safe, and therefore he should be paying her for that confidentiality. She further warned him that he should not trust any other girl or person with this matter, and also stated that he should not outsource any part of it to others. Junhyung questioned her after that, pointing out that she was already running a waxing shop by herself. In response, Ji-hyun admitted that she was running it secretly, and told him that he should understand how lucky he was to even be receiving her help. After a moment of hesitation, Junyoung eventually agreed to her terms. Ji-hyun then added yet another instruction, telling him that he should bring that girl with him next time. She explained that it would look strange on camera if someone had to wax themselves, and at that point Junhyung realized that she was also thinking about using Juha as a model for her shop. He immediately reacted by telling her not to say such ridiculous things. However, Ji-hyun insisted and added that she would even give a friendly discount, repeating that he should make sure to bring her next time. After that, she told him not to just sit around and follow her passively, but instead to pay attention because she would properly teach him something useful. Junyoung agreed, and Ji-hyun then sat in front of the computer and began guiding him through the editing process. She explained step by step what she was doing, telling him that this was an implementation course and that he needed to understand basic editing techniques. She showed him how to cut and shorten videos using shortcuts, and then went on to teach him how to add subtitles and manage the overall structure of editing properly. A few days later, Junyoung received a message from Juha asking him to meet her at a cafe. Seeing the message, he thought to himself that she could have simply checked the video after he had sent it instead of calling him there again. Still, he decided to go to the cafe, thinking that since he was already going, he might as well pass the time there, even considering playing some games while waiting, assuming she would probably already be there. When he arrived at the cafe, he noticed that Juha was already sitting there. She immediately told him that she had received the video. Then she asked him to sit next to her. Junhyung observed that she did not initially seem very bothered, but suddenly she became emotional and started raising her voice, saying that people kept insulting her and that she had not been able to defend herself properly in the end. She became visibly upset and somewhat agitated while expressing her frustration. Junhyung then asked her to calm down and explained that the audio was still available on his phone and that they could check it right there. He then handed her his phone so she could watch it directly. Juha began watching the video carefully and then commented that it looked quite decent. She asked him whether he had truly edited it himself or whether he had paid someone else to do it for him. Junyoung was surprised by her assumption and thought that she might have become very observant or suspicious. He told her that a friend had taught him how to edit. Upon hearing this, Juha looked at him in surprise and remarked that it was hard to believe he even had a friend who could teach him such things. However, she then added that the work itself was not bad. After that, she told him that she would send him the ID and password, and since she was busy, he should handle the uploading process himself from now on. Junhyung silently thought that she was still managing to insult him while making him do all the work at the same time. Despite that, the two of them ended up sitting together and playing a game on their phones. While playing, Junhyung quietly complained about her behavior in his mind. During this, Juha suddenly mentioned that there was one more thing she wanted to tell him. After losing the game, Juha looked visibly disappointed, though she tried not to show it too strongly. Junhyung, on the other hand, remained seated and quietly observed her reaction. In his thoughts, he began reflecting on her behavior, assuming that she might have learned games like this in a very casual or unstructured way, possibly from boys during her high school days. He further judged that she seemed a bit disorganized in her approach, and that instead of acting impulsively, she could have simply communicated more clearly about what she wanted to do. While he was still thinking this, Juha suddenly asked him whether he knew how to play Texas Hold'em. The question caught him slightly off guard, and he immediately clarified by asking if it was similar to poker. Juha confirmed that it was indeed a form of poker. Junhyung then responded that he had a basic understanding of it. At the same time, he silently assumed that he could probably perform better than Juha, whom he mentally considered inexperienced or unreliable in this kind of game. Juha then suggested that they should try playing it properly. She proposed that each of them put in 10,000 won and play just one round, explaining that it would help her recover a bit from her previous loss. Junhyung asked her what would happen if he ended up losing instead. Juha replied without hesitation that if he lost, he would need to make up for it with his skills rather than just money. Junhyung, hearing this, briefly thought to himself that even if he lost, he could technically just pay her back with money, but he did not express this thought aloud. After that, they began the game. As soon as the round started, Junhyung felt a slight sense of pressure, thinking that he might already be at a disadvantage from the very beginning. Juha sat beside him and kept encouraging him as they played, but internally he thought that such encouragement was unnecessary, especially since it was his first time and he needed to focus properly. He also considered that folding early would be the safest option if the stakes became too high, although he was still curious about how the other players were behaving and what their tendencies might be. Despite all this, he confidently told Juha that he could handle the situation. The first round eventually came to an end, and Junhyung ended up winning that round. Juha's reaction to his win was immediate and very energetic, as she became extremely excited. Watching her reaction, Junhyung silently observed that she did not seem to have a deep understanding of the game itself, and appeared to be reacting more emotionally than strategically. He also assumed that she might end up losing money if she continued in this way, and further judged that most of the players were probably average in skill. Even after that, he decided to continue playing a few more rounds. In his mind, he thought that none of the other participants were particularly strong players. He concluded that the main issue in the game was Juha's lack of experience, rather than any real difficulty in the competition itself. After several more rounds, Junhyung eventually asked Juha how much money he had earned in total. Juha then informed him that he had won 500,000 won in total. Hearing this, she became extremely excited and emotional. In her excitement, she suddenly hugged him without warning. Right after that, she began shouting at him, telling him that he should have informed her earlier that he knew how to play the game. At that moment, Junhyung realized that she had never actually asked him about his skill level or experience before starting the game. Juha then quickly shifted the topic and said that they should have started working on the workout session together earlier as well. Junhyung responded by pointing out that they were in a public place, implying that it might not be appropriate to do such things there. However, Juha replied that she did not hesitate or feel uncomfortable in such situations. After this exchange, both of them proceeded to begin the workout session together, as she had suggested. Juha instructed Junhyung to record the entire workout session on his phone so that it could be used later. Junhyung followed her instructions and kept his phone recording throughout the session without interruption, focusing on capturing everything as she directed. After they had finished the workout session completely, both of them left the gaming session area together and came out into the open space outside. Once they were outside, Juha immediately turned to him and told him that he should properly edit the video, add it together in a clean format, and send it to her as soon as possible. Junhyung nodded and agreed to her request without arguing, acknowledging that he would handle the editing and delivery. He then mentioned that the original idea of the video was supposed to be centered around the PC cafe environment, but in reality, most of the recording had ended up taking place in the bathroom area instead, which made the structure feel a bit inconsistent. Upon hearing this, Juha calmly responded that there was also another camera placed near their seats, implying that multiple angles and recordings had already been arranged. Junhyung was completely unaware of this detail. Hearing it from her made him realize that she had actually been planning the whole setup from the very beginning. This realization made him pause mentally, as he started understanding that the situation was not as spontaneous as he had initially believed. Juha then added that there was nothing strange or wrong about it and further explained that he might have thought she suddenly got excited about the workout session because of him, but she clearly stated that this was not the case at all. Junhyung quickly responded, agreeing with her and saying that he had not assumed anything like that. Juha then told him not to behave strangely or overthink the situation and casually informed him that she was leaving. Junhyung observed her tone and behavior and thought to himself that she would likely leave on her own regardless of anything else. With that in mind, he followed her briefly as she walked away down the street. After that, Junhyung eventually returned to his home. Once he was alone, he started reflecting on the entire situation while thinking about the content he had recorded. In his mind, he considered that, although the overall concept of the content was actually quite strong and had potential, the structure of the video itself was poorly organized from a technical standpoint and felt somewhat unsatisfactory to him. as someone who was now involved in editing. However, at the same time, he also thought that the raw and unpolished nature of the footage gave it a more realistic feel. He believed that this realism could actually make it more engaging and exciting for viewers if it was edited in a certain way. While he was in the middle of editing the video, his phone suddenly received a message from Fernhwa. In the message, she asked him whether he would be available sometime this weekend. Junyoung was thinking that Fernhwa might have been referring to the assignment they had discussed earlier, and based on that understanding, both of them had decided to meet on Saturday. After that, he went back to focusing on editing the video, trying to continue his work as usual. A few days later, Saturday finally arrived, and only then did he fully realize that the meeting they had planned was supposed to happen that day. With that thought in mind, he was already standing at the designated meeting spot, continuously messaging her and asking her to reach out quickly. While waiting there, he kept thinking to himself that this situation might actually resemble a date more than a simple meeting, which made him slightly more nervous and confused. After some time, she appeared in front of him. She was fully dressed up and looked prepared as if she had already planned everything in advance. Without wasting time, she immediately told him that they should start moving. Junyoung, still slightly unsettled, asked her if she had been calling him by strange or weird names earlier. In response, she casually said that she could call him whatever she wanted. Hearing this, he felt even more unsure and said that he probably should not have shown her the assignment in the first place. However, she dismissed his concern by saying that it was already too late to think about that, and insisted again that they should just leave immediately, as there was no time to waste. Soon after, both of them arrived outside a clothing store. She told him that he should have informed her if there was anything he specifically wanted to buy. Junyoung, on the other hand, was observing the place and thinking that this was the kind of store where all the stylish and confident people usually bought their clothes. Because of that, he felt somewhat awkward and overwhelmed, as if he did not fully belong in that environment. She then suggested that they should begin with something simple that he could wear on a daily basis. She honestly added that, from what she could see, the more she looked at him, the more she felt he should dress in a way that covered him properly, recommending that he stick to basic inner layers and a decent jacket that could help conceal his body shape. After that, she started picking out clothes and showing them to him, encouraging him to try each of them on one by one. At the same time, she also commented that flashy or overly bold styles did not suit him well. During all of this, Junyoung simply stood there, quietly observing her as she moved around selecting clothes. While watching her, he thought that she was just the best friend of Juha, and in his mind, he began to feel that perhaps both of them shared certain similarities in personality or behavior. Meanwhile, she continued showing him different clothing options without stopping. At one point, she suddenly told him not to look at her in that way, and added that she already knew she was beautiful, telling him instead to focus properly on choosing his clothes. This remark made Junyoung feel embarrassed, and he quickly became more conscious of himself. She then further commented that he should consider changing his glasses, suggesting that they might be the reason he looked somewhat strange. Without hesitation, she even removed his glasses herself. Junyoung immediately thought that without them he could barely see anything, but she insisted that he should use contact lenses instead. After that, she told him to pay the bill and follow her, adding that they still had more places to visit. Accepting this, both of them left, and later went into a beauty salon. Once Junyoung had his haircut done, she looked at him and said that he now looked like a completely brand new person. Junyoung, upon seeing his reflection, could hardly believe the change himself. She then further remarked that he finally looked like a human being and told him that he should be grateful to her. She also warned him to stop staring at his reflection for too long, before she ended up smashing his phone. After that, she once again pointed out that he looked very different compared to the last time she had seen him. Junyoung explained that the difference was likely because he had gotten a haircut and also changed his clothes. However, she responded by saying that she could not properly explain it, but it felt as though there was something on his mind. Hearing this, Junyoung slowly began to realize that she might actually be sensing something unusual about him. She then shifted the topic and said that since she had worked hard throughout the day, he should treat her to dinner. Junyoung agreed to this, and both of them decided to go out and eat beef together. They eventually went to a restaurant, but Junyoung realized that he did not have enough money with him. Seeing this, she suggested that she would do him a favor and settle for chicken and beer instead, while she herself would only have a honey combo. Junyoung agreed to this arrangement, although he kept thinking that she was still making him pay in the end. During the meal, she commented that he did not even know how to drink properly, and jokingly said that it was no surprise since he was a man who had never dated anyone before. Junyoung responded by saying that even though he had never dated, he was not someone that inexperienced. She then asked him about the person who had taken his cardio card, and he replied that he had only undergone workout training. She then called him boring and said that he had ruined her drink. After that, she said they should leave, and reminded him that he needed to pay for the drinks as well. Junhyung asked her to use Samsung Pay from his phone, and she agreed. However, when she took his phone, she unexpectedly noticed several notifications from Juha, which left her quite surprised. Inha was staring at Junhyung's phone, unable to understand why Juha would send him such a huge amount of money. She began thinking that maybe the two of them had actually gone through with the workout session and uploaded the video onto the platform. Unable to ignore her curiosity anymore, Inha decided to open the messages one by one. As she read through them, she saw a message from Juha, informing Junhyung that they were currently in a great position and had already made 2 million won in sales. Juha had also mentioned that she had just transferred his share of the money to him. After that, she asked him whether he was planning to edit the next video as well. At that moment, Inha finally realized that everything she had been suspecting was actually true. She could not help but think about how she had already made her feelings clear to him before, yet things still ended up like this. The more she thought about it, the more convinced she became that there was definitely some kind of deal going on between Junhyung and Juha. Meanwhile, on the other side of the table, Junhyung was sitting there quietly drinking by himself. While he was lost in his own thoughts, the waiter approached him and asked him to pay the bill. The next morning, Junhyung woke up and found himself lying on the bed with a pounding headache. He felt as if his head was about to explode and immediately realized that he had drunk far too much the previous night. Still trying to recover from the hangover, he picked up his phone and noticed that he had received several messages from Juha, who had been asking him to reply to her. The moment he saw the amount of money that had been transferred to him, he became extremely excited. He could hardly believe that Juha had actually sent him that much money. He started thinking that it might really be possible for him to earn money simply by doing workout sessions and uploading videos like that. The entire situation still felt unbelievable to him, and he struggled to process the fact that everything was actually real. As he continued checking his phone, he noticed that there were also comments containing editing suggestions and information related to the video. Seeing all of that made him think that maybe he should have asked Jihyun for help regarding the editing process after all. However, before worrying about any of that, he decided that he should first go outside and clear his mind. After that, Junhyung made his way to the cafe where he was supposed to meet Jihyun. The entire time he was walking there, his mind kept replaying everything that had happened since the workout video was uploaded. Even now, he still could not properly process the fact that he had actually earned such a huge amount of money from something he had considered ridiculous in the beginning. Because of that, he felt that the only person he could really talk to about all of this was Jihyun. As soon as he entered the cafe, Jihyun immediately noticed him sitting there and stared at him for a moment before speaking. She commented that his dressing sense looked very different compared to usual, and admitted that she had almost failed to recognize him at first glance. Her eyes moved up and down as she observed him carefully before casually teasing him by saying that if he had come there because of waxing aftercare, he could have simply visited the shop instead of showing up like this. Junhyung quickly denied it and awkwardly told her that it was not like that at all. He then sat down across from her and, without wasting much time, started explaining everything that had happened regarding the video. While talking, he eventually took out his phone and showed her the payment he had received. The moment Jihyun saw the amount displayed on the screen, her expression changed completely. She looked genuinely shocked and leaned closer just to make sure she had read the numbers correctly. Junhyung then reminded her that a promise was still a promise after all. However, Jihyun still looked unable to believe it and immediately reacted by saying that there was absolutely no way such a weird video could have earned that much money. To her, the entire situation sounded ridiculous. Even so, Junhyung calmly insisted that it was completely true and that the money had already been transferred to him. Jihyun stared at the phone for another moment before finally handing it back to him. Even after seeing the proof herself, she still looked surprised by the entire thing. She then pointed out that regardless of the promise he mentioned, there was no way he had come all the way there just to hand over money to her like that. She knew there had to be another reason behind his visit. After hearing that, Junhyung finally explained what had really been bothering him. He admitted that after editing the video and reading through the comments, he realized that the overall shot composition and filming style could have been much better. While looking at other videos online, he started noticing things that he himself did not understand properly. Because of that, he wanted to seriously learn how filming and editing worked, instead of randomly putting clips together. He then admitted that he honestly did not know anyone else he could ask for help besides her. The moment the conversation shifted toward work, Jihyun's expression immediately became irritated. She clearly did not want to spend her time discussing filming techniques while sitting at the cafe. In an annoyed tone, she told him that he should simply take the free waxing aftercare she had promised him and leave afterward instead of dragging her into more work-related matters. Even then, Junhyung continued trying to convince her. He explained that after seeing how much money the first video had earned, he felt that this could actually become a good opportunity for him in the future. He admitted that he wanted to properly improve instead of wasting the chance completely. After listening to him for a while longer, Jihyun finally let out a sigh and reluctantly agreed. She then asked him whether he had enough free time for today. Before he could properly respond, she explained that practice was always more effective than simply learning through theory. According to her, if he genuinely wanted to understand filming properly, then actually recording and experimenting with camera work would teach him far more than basic explanations ever could. Hearing that she had finally agreed to help him, Junhyung immediately thanked her. Jihyun then told him that they should first go to her place before heading somewhere else afterward. Without questioning it too much, Junhyung simply followed along. Later, after Jihyun finished taking care of her own tasks, the two of them eventually ended up entering a motel together. The moment Junhyung realized where they were, he looked completely confused. He glanced around awkwardly before questioning the price of the room and wondering why they even needed to be in a place like this just for filming practice. In response, Jihyun casually told him not to make such a big deal out of it because videos like these were often filmed in locations exactly like this. To her, the environment simply worked better for recording and lighting purposes. She spoke as if it was something completely normal, while Junhyung still looked uncomfortable trying to process everything. Without wasting any time, Jihyun immediately started unpacking equipment and setting up multiple cameras around the room. While adjusting one of the cameras onto a tripod, she explained that having more cameras was always better because it gave them more footage and angles to work with during editing. She continued explaining that relying only on handheld footage usually caused the video to become shaky and unstable, which was why tripods were considered a much better option for smoother recording. As she kept moving around the room preparing the setup, she continued giving him advice about filming techniques. She explained that depending on the atmosphere and the type of feeling they wanted to create in the video, handheld filming could still sometimes be useful, especially when trying to capture closer shots with more movement and energy. After that, she pointed toward the lighting arrangement and explained that placing a light source on one side while using a reflector on the opposite side could help balance the lighting much better. According to her, it helped make the footage look cleaner and more professional overall. However, after explaining all of that, she casually admitted that using such a setup for their current situation might actually be a little excessive. While listening carefully to everything she was teaching him, Junhyung eventually asked whether all of that equipment and setup would require a major amount of money. In response, Jihyun told him that since he was already earning money from these videos, it would be far smarter to invest in proper equipment rather than spending the money carelessly on random things. Junhyung quietly agreed with her reasoning after hearing that explanation. Once all the cameras and equipment were finally prepared, Jihyun announced that it was now time for the two of them to actually practice different camera angles properly. After that, she started going through workout routines together with him, while all of the cameras continued recording from different positions around the room. Throughout the entire process, Junhyung still looked visibly confused and overwhelmed, as if he still could not fully understand how his life had suddenly reached this strange point. After they finally completed the workout session, Junhyung began preparing to leave the motel room. The entire recording session had left him mentally exhausted, and even while gathering his belongings, he still looked slightly overwhelmed by everything that had happened. Meanwhile, Jihyun remained focused on the equipment and reminded him that she was not going to leave yet because she still had to pack all of the cameras and other filming gear properly. As she continued removing memory cards and adjusting the equipment, she casually mentioned that maybe she should try creating an account on the platform herself as well. She admitted that helping him with the filming process had actually been surprisingly fun for her. While saying that, she lightly smiled to herself, as if the entire experience had entertained her far more than she expected. Hearing that, Junhyung immediately agreed with her idea. He told her that she could definitely do something like that too, and even added that it would probably become a huge success if she actually decided to go through with it. The moment she heard his response, Jihyun could not help smiling slightly at his honest reaction. After that short conversation, Junhyung simply waved goodbye and left the room without thinking too deeply about the situation. Once the door closed behind him and he disappeared from sight, Jihyun remained sitting there quietly for a moment. She then muttered to herself that he really could not read the atmosphere at all. In her mind, it felt ridiculous that he had actually left a woman alone inside a motel room without even hesitating for a second. Still sitting there by herself, she eventually let out a quiet sigh before turning her attention back toward the equipment. After that, she started checking all the recorded footage from the cameras one by one. As she watched through the videos they had filmed during the workout session, she carefully observed the different angles and clips, while continuing to organize the equipment around the room. The next day, Inha was lying alone on her bed while trying to clear her thoughts. She kept telling herself that she should simply forget about everything instead of overthinking the situation. However, no matter how hard she tried, she could not stop thinking about the kind of videos Juha and Junyoung might have recorded together. The curiosity inside her continued growing stronger until she eventually gave in to it completely. Unable to resist anymore, Inha picked up her phone and started searching for Juha's account on the platform. At first, she was not even sure whether she would actually find anything. However, to her surprise, she eventually managed to locate the account. The moment she opened the profile, she noticed that 2 videos had already been uploaded there. As soon as she realized that the uploaded content consisted entirely of workout session videos involving Junyoung and Juha, her expression immediately filled with shock. For a moment, she simply stared at the screen in disbelief while trying to process what she was seeing. Even though part of her wanted to close the application immediately, her curiosity ultimately became stronger. Because of that, she decided to watch all of the uploaded videos herself. While watching them, she remained completely focused on the screen. At the same time, she unconsciously started strengthening and moving her finger muscles repeatedly while continuing through the videos, almost as if the tension and emotion she was feeling had nowhere else to go. Meanwhile, on the other side, Junyoung was messaging Juha again. He asked her whether they should already start preparing for the next video project. Juha responded positively and told him that they should continue moving forward with it. After reading her reply, Junyoung started thinking to himself that he might have to keep asking and discussing things with her repeatedly if they wanted the channel to continue growing properly. In his mind, it felt like all of that potential money would completely go to waste if Juha ever rejected his ideas or stopped working together with him. Because of that, he convinced himself that it would be better to focus seriously on the opportunity in front of him and continue looking forward instead of hesitating now. A few days later, Junyoung was seen walking through the corridors of the university while looking down at his phone. As he moved ahead slowly, his mind remained focused on the thought that the day ahead was important for him. He kept thinking that he had prepared everything in advance and hoped that no issues or unexpected problems would arise later during the day. His attention stayed divided between his surroundings and the thoughts running through his mind, creating a slightly distracted state as he continued walking. While he was still lost in these thoughts, he unexpectedly noticed Inha standing right in front of him. The sudden encounter made him pause briefly. Inha greeted him politely, mentioning that it had been quite a long time since they had last seen each other. Junyoung responded by agreeing with her, and then asked whether she had managed to return safely after the previous weekend. Inha replied calmly that everything had gone completely fine and there were no issues during her return. After that brief exchange, Inha took out the assignment and handed it over to him. Junyoung quickly reached out and took it from her hands. Observing his rushed behavior, Inha commented that his hands looked quite occupied and suggested that she could place the assignment inside his bag for him to make things easier. However, Junyoung immediately refused her offer without hesitation. His sudden refusal and quick reaction left Inha standing there in a slightly surprised and confused state. Without staying any longer, Junyoung turned away and hurriedly left the place. As he moved away, he kept thinking to himself that maybe they were also preparing for the workout session on that same day. Later in the evening, Juha was standing on the street outside, waiting for Junyoung to arrive. While waiting, she was thinking that it was at least a positive sign that he had chosen a proper place for the workout session. At the same time, she also worried internally that if the location turned out to be unsuitable or problematic, things might become very difficult for her. These thoughts kept running through her mind as she continued to wait. After some time had passed, she eventually reached the outside of the motel room. Junyoung opened the door for her as she arrived. The moment Juha saw him, she became visibly surprised because of his new appearance. For a brief moment, she even struggled to recognize him properly, due to how different he looked compared to before. After adjusting to the change, she complimented him, expressing that he looked quite good. Unbeknownst to both of them, Inha was quietly observing the situation from a distance, watching everything without revealing her presence. Meanwhile, Juha and Junyoung entered the room together and immediately began setting up the cameras for recording. However, as Juha looked around the place more carefully, she became visibly disappointed with the condition of the room. She expressed her frustration by saying that she felt foolish for having any expectations from him regarding the setup. In response, Junyoung showed her a dress he had prepared and suggested that she wear it, explaining that it would look better in the video. After a brief moment of consideration, Juha agreed to his suggestion. Once she changed into the outfit, both of them proceeded to begin the workout session together, ensuring that everything was being recorded properly as they performed. After completing the workout session, Junhyung suggested that they should promote their OnlyFans app in a similar way to other creators who were doing the same, believing it might help increase visibility and engagement. A few days later, time had passed, and Junhyung found himself reflecting on everything that had happened. He thought that he had already created the social media account and made the announcement, and because the exam term was approaching, he believed there would be at least a brief period of calm in his daily life. However, this assumption soon proved to be incorrect. One day, while he was sitting in a lecture at the university, he suddenly started receiving continuous notifications from the OnlyFans app. The sudden flood of alerts immediately caught his attention, and he began thinking that his life was far from peaceful at that moment. He also reflected on how, as someone who had always felt like an outcast, receiving this level of attention felt overwhelming and mentally exhausting. In addition, he realized that he had forgotten to switch his phone back to silent mode after his morning alarm, which added to his frustration. At the same time, another issue came to his mind. He noticed that many of the applications he was receiving for female recruitment were actually coming from male applicants posing as female candidates. This situation made him think more critically about the recruitment process. He firmly felt that he did not want to accept such applicants, and he also had no intention of forwarding them elsewhere. However, at the same time, he found it increasingly difficult to find suitable female applicants for the role. That night, Junhyung returned home and began working on video editing. While doing so, he realized that the editing process was taking much longer than usual. He felt physically and mentally tired because he also had pending assignments to complete. Despite his fatigue, he continued working. Suddenly, more messages started appearing again on the app. This time, however, it was different, because one of the applicants was actually a female user. The applicant turned out to be Sua, a well-known personality on the platform. After seeing her application, Junhyung began thinking that this could potentially give him an opportunity to conduct a workout training session with someone experienced. He then sent her a message suggesting that they meet and talk for a while before making any final decisions. Almost immediately after sending the message, he reconsidered his actions and thought that he should have consulted Juha first before responding. Because of this realization, he informed Sua that he would first discuss the matter with his partner and then get back to her with a proper response. While going through her profile, Junhyung felt that the app was starting to affect his attention more than before. He also admitted to himself that he was becoming increasingly drawn into it. Despite this, he continued scrolling and decided to check Sua's account in more detail since it had been some time since he last viewed it. While doing so, he also wondered whether new profiles might have appeared since his previous visit. During this browsing, another female account caught his attention. As he looked at it carefully, he felt a strange sense of familiarity, as though he had seen the person somewhere before, although he could not clearly remember where. At that moment, he suddenly received a message from Jihyun. In her message, she commented that he had been producing good videos recently, and mentioned that they would be changing the contractor afterward. Junhyung immediately felt that the situation seemed unusual and slightly unsettling. Soon after, Jihyun asked him to come over to her place for a while. Junhyung began thinking that if he delayed or arrived late, it could lead to serious trouble for him. With that concern in mind, he decided to go to her place without further delay. He also brought along the fried chicken she had requested earlier. When he reached the apartment building, he stood outside her door. He noticed a note placed there instructing him that if he intended to enter the room, he should first wear the helmet placed in front of the door. Reading this message, Junhyung became slightly anxious and began thinking that there might be some kind of unexpected situation waiting for him inside. Even though he felt uncertain, he picked up the helmet and wore it as instructed. After he did so, the door finally opened, and he saw Jihyun standing inside, already prepared for the workout session. After completing the workout session, Junhyung and Jihyun were sitting across from each other at the table. The fried chicken they had brought earlier was placed in the middle of the table, but it had already turned cold. Junhyung looked at it and commented that the chicken had become completely cold by now, adding that they should have eaten it earlier when it was still warm. His tone was casual, as if he was trying to lighten the mood after the session. Jihyun listened to him and responded in a slightly teasing manner, saying that it had become cold because of certain people being careless or not managing time properly. Her words carried a subtle, playful blame, though it was not harsh or serious. Junhyung understood the tone behind her comment and could not help but laugh softly in response, accepting it as a light joke rather than a complaint. After the small moment of humor faded, Junhyung shifted the conversation to something more serious. He asked her how she intended to change her contract moving forward, wanting to understand her decision clearly. Jihyun paused for a moment, listening carefully, as if organizing her thoughts before answering. Then she replied that she would no longer be taking any profit money from him anymore. Her words came out calmly and directly, but they immediately caught Junhyung off guard. He looked visibly surprised by this sudden decision, as it was not something he had expected her to say. Seeing his reaction, Jihyun continued explaining her thoughts in more detail. She said that she had started earning money through the app on her own now, and she was managing everything independently. She added that she had developed a real interest in it while doing so, and that this interest had actually begun because of him in the first place. According to her, what initially started as something external had gradually turned into something she personally enjoyed. As Junyoung listened to her explanation, he started thinking to himself that she was actually active on the same app under the name Jiwa. Jihyun then moved the conversation forward by saying that instead of the previous arrangement, she now wanted his help in a different way. She explained that she would decide things depending on the videos and how everything developed, because handling all of it alone was not easy. She admitted that doing everything by herself felt overwhelming at times, and that having support made things much more manageable. Junhyung listened to her carefully, and eventually agreed to her suggestion. In his mind, he also thought that rejecting her offer would not be easy, considering the situation and the way she had expressed it. He acknowledged the arrangement and responded that he would be willing to consider it, even thinking that it might turn out to be better than the previous 20% profit structure they had discussed. However, Jihyun then clarified that her offer was not only about work or profit. She emphasized that it was also a personal request, which made the tone of the conversation slightly more serious. After that, she directly asked him whether he would be willing to stop doing workout sessions with the other girl and instead join her exclusively for future collaborations. Jihyun looked directly at Junyoung and spoke in a steady but firm tone, as if she had already thought everything through before saying it. She reminded him that he had clearly mentioned earlier that he was involved in this entire business only because of money. Because of that, she continued, it should not really matter to him who he was working with or what kind of arrangement he had. She then added that, in such a case, it would be better and more practical if he joined her for the workout sessions instead of continuing in the current way. Her words hit Junhyung more deeply than he expected. For a brief moment, he did not respond. His expression changed slightly as his mind became occupied. A sudden wave of thoughts came over him, and he experienced a flashback of all the events that had taken place so far, the initial arrangements, the sessions they had done, the unexpected turns in conversations, and the gradual way everything had developed into something more complicated than he had originally imagined. While these thoughts played in his mind, he stood still in silence, trying to organize his understanding of the situation. The more he thought, the more he realized how many different directions this situation could take. After a moment, Junyoung began to think internally that, from a logical perspective, this actually seemed like a better opportunity. No matter how he analyzed it, it appeared to be more beneficial for him in terms of progress and convenience. However, even though his mind could recognize that, he still felt unable to simply accept her offer directly. Something inside him made it difficult to agree without hesitation. After a short pause, he finally spoke and said that he would need some time to think about it properly before giving an answer. His tone was calm but careful. Hearing this, Jihyun immediately responded. She told him that she already knew he liked Juha, and because of that, she assumed he was refusing or hesitating. Junyoung quickly denied her assumption and clarified that it was not like that at all. He insisted that his hesitation had nothing to do with feelings in that way. He then added that he still did not believe it would be right to suddenly cut ties or stop working with Juha so abruptly. While saying this, he also thought to himself that perhaps Jihyun did not fully understand the depth of his current situation or the nature of his connection with Juha. There were things that were not easy to explain, and he felt that his position was being slightly misunderstood. After a moment, he continued speaking and said that because of this, he would also have to refuse her first offer as well. He tried to make his stance clearer, even though he was still thinking carefully inside. Jihyun looked at him quietly, and then spoke in a slightly different tone, one that carried a mix of familiarity and teasing. She said that the little kid she once knew had really grown up now. After that, she insisted again that he should be honest with her and tell her everything clearly instead of avoiding the topic or hiding his thoughts. However, Junhyung continued to deny her interpretation and avoided confirming anything she was implying. He then said that, in that case, he might have to reject both of her offers entirely. His voice remained steady, but the decision sounded final in that moment. Jihyun listened and then responded that she also needed his help regarding something else. She added that he should continue assisting her until the time he started dating Juha. She spoke in a way that tried to establish a condition or agreement, pressing him to accept some form of deal between them. Junyoung immediately refused again, clearly stating that something like that was not going to happen. He made it clear that he could not agree to such terms. Instead, he suggested that she could continue helping him only until she herself found a boyfriend. His response was firm, even though the situation remained tense. Ji-hyun then spoke again, this time sounding tired. She said that she was exhausted and that she was going to sleep. Before leaving, she also asked him, casually, whether he would sleep with her like he used to do when he was younger, bringing up a memory from the past in a light but personal way. Jun-hyung stood up immediately and rejected her offer, clearly stating that he was busy because it was exam week. He used that as his reason and did not extend the conversation further. After that, he left the place. Once he had left, Ji-hyun remained behind. She sat quietly for a moment, her expression becoming more still and thoughtful. Internally, she felt that he was being a good liar, and she thought to herself that he had emotionally humiliated her in a way that felt quite strong and personal. Meanwhile, Jun-young was outside, standing alone while holding his phone. He began checking through all the applications and candidates who had applied for the position. As he scrolled through the increasing number of applicants, he thought that although the quantity had gone up, there was still no certainty regarding their identities or reliability. In his mind, he acknowledged that finding a genuine female guest was still very difficult, even though more people were applying now. At the same time, Inha was also acting on her side in a very careful and hidden manner. She maintained a mysterious identity while preparing her application and sending it forward. Inha became increasingly frustrated as Jun-hyung kept insisting on a verification photo. She paused for a moment, staring at her phone with visible irritation, and muttered to herself that there probably weren't even any real volunteers available there anyway, so all these checks felt pointless in her view. As she stood there thinking, she began recalling the earlier verification process she had already gone through. In her mind, that first test had already been annoying enough, requiring unnecessary effort and patience. Now, being asked again for another form of verification made her feel even more irritated. She exhaled sharply, clearly annoyed, and thought that she would have to go through the same kind of hassle all over again. Even then, she rationalized it to herself. She thought that it was not as if she was required to reveal her full face, so it should not be that big of a problem. With that thought, she decided to proceed anyway. Putting aside her frustration, she carefully took a body picture as requested. She also added her identification note alongside it, making sure everything matched the instructions properly. Once she finished preparing everything, she sent it to Jun-young with the expectation that this time it would be enough to guarantee approval, especially since she was confident in her identity as Inha. However, shortly after sending it, she received a reply from Jun-hyung stating that they could not accept her application in that form. The response immediately made her expression tighten with frustration. She felt that despite following the instructions, she was still being rejected. That feeling of being stopped again without proper acceptance made her even more annoyed than before. Not willing to back down, she decided to try again. This time, she took another photo of herself and sent it once more, pushing the process further in the hope that it would finally meet the requirements. However, even then, Jun-hyung's responses did not ease. Instead, the situation continued in a way that felt to her like the demands were not stabilizing but increasing. This made her irritation grow further, though she still continued following through with each request, doing whatever was being asked of her step by step. On Jun-hyung's side, as he reviewed the images and information, he thought that the submission was enough for basic verification purposes. At the same time, he found it somewhat unusual that she did not seem familiar with how the process worked, as if she was approaching it differently from other applicants. Nevertheless, since she was still an applicant, he decided he had to proceed according to procedure rather than personal judgment. After dealing with the application matter, Jun-hyung made his way to Juha's place because the situation required urgency. When he arrived, Juha welcomed him, but she immediately showed surprise when he said that he was there because it was urgent. Without wasting time, Jun-hyung told her that he needed to complete the workout session quickly. Juha responded and agreed, although her expression showed that she was not fully pleased with how things were being handled. Then Jun-hyung took out his mobile phone and showed her the list of invited female applicants. He explained that they needed to go through them and decide properly, and added that she should also take a look and choose carefully. He said that he would explain everything step by step so she could understand the situation clearly. However, as soon as he said this, Juha became visibly angry. She had been expecting that the meeting would focus solely on performing the workout training with her, not turning into a discussion about applicants and recruitment decisions. The sudden shift in focus made her feel disappointed and irritated, as if the purpose of the meeting had been changed without her expectation. Jun-hyung then started explaining in detail. He told her that there were two main applicants. He described the first applicant as a very famous figure on the app, someone already well known among users. He explained that if they filmed with her, it could help their platform grow significantly and possibly even expand its reach overnight. He added that many people already recognized her, and even he had seen her videos before, which made her a strong option in terms of popularity and exposure. He was still in the middle of explaining the second applicant when Juha suddenly interrupted him. Without allowing him to complete his comparison, she immediately said that they should go with the second applicant. Junyoung reacted at once, telling her that she should let him finish explaining everything first so she could make a proper decision. But Juha insisted that she already understood enough and had made up her mind. She repeated firmly that they would go with the second option and did not want to hear further explanation. Junyoung tried to respond, but she maintained her decision and said she would handle it from there. In a moment of frustration, she ended up throwing him out of her house and closing the door, cutting the conversation short. Junyoung was left outside without being able to continue the discussion. Inside, Yuha remained for a moment, thinking to herself that she would proceed with arranging a video shoot with Sua instead, focusing on that decision moving forward. Meanwhile, time continued to move toward the scheduled filming with the newly selected invitee, as both sides prepared for what would come next. Inha was wearing a mask along with a hoodie, while keeping her entire appearance covered as she stood nervously outside the residence of Junyoung and Juha. She remained near the door for a few moments before finally gathering enough courage to knock. While waiting outside, she started thinking that maybe they were not going to open the door for her at all, or perhaps she had accidentally come to the wrong place. Her mind was already becoming restless with doubt and embarrassment, but before she could continue overthinking the situation any further, the door suddenly opened in front of her. Juha appeared at the entrance and immediately invited her inside without hesitation. As soon as Juha looked at her properly, she asked if she was the girl who had the appointment before, quickly pulling her inside the house. Inha barely had enough time to react before Juha shut the door behind her. Juha then looked at the clothes Inha was wearing and casually told her that she could not stay dressed like that. Without wasting any time, Juha handed her another set of clothes and pushed her toward the bathroom before locking the door behind her. Standing alone inside the bathroom, Inha looked at herself in the mirror while feeling extremely uncomfortable about the entire situation. She quietly thought to herself that none of this had been part of her original plan at all. She even wondered if she should completely back out and stop everything before it went any further. However, after calming herself down slightly, she convinced herself that for now she should simply wait, observe the situation carefully, and see how things would go. While thinking like that, she slowly began changing into the clothes Juha had given her. Meanwhile, outside the bathroom, Junyoung was discussing the details of the workout session with Juha and explaining the exercises they were about to perform together. After a while, Inha finally stepped out of the bathroom and appeared in front of both of them. The atmosphere immediately became awkward for her because it felt strange standing there with the two of them like that. Even so, the three of them soon started performing the workout session together. During the entire session, Inha remained nervous and self-conscious because it was her first time experiencing something like this. She constantly felt aware of every movement she made and struggled to feel comfortable. Once the workout session was finally over, Inha quietly returned to her own home. The moment she was alone inside her room, all the emotions she had been holding back suddenly overwhelmed her, and she started crying. It had been her first experience doing something like that, and the emotional pressure of the situation felt far heavier than she had expected. She kept replaying everything inside her mind while feeling confused, embarrassed, and emotionally exhausted at the same time. The following day, Inha and Juha were sitting together inside a cafe. Although they were together like usual, Inha kept silently staring at Juha throughout their conversation. Juha eventually noticed the strange atmosphere and commented that the two of them had been meeting very often these days. In response, Inha immediately replied that they had always met that often, so there was nothing unusual about it. She then added that Juha was actually the one who had been acting distant lately because she constantly kept saying that she was busy. Juha calmly explained that both she and Junyoung had been occupied because of their exams recently, so they naturally did not have much free time. Hearing that explanation made Inha quietly think to herself that she had been suffering emotionally because of both of them this entire time. After remaining silent for a brief moment, she finally gathered the courage to directly ask Juha whether she was genuinely involved in those OnlyFans workout sessions with Junyoung. The question visibly surprised Juha for a moment because she had not expected Inha to suddenly bring up that topic so directly. However, instead of avoiding the question, Juha casually admitted that they were seriously doing those workout sessions together. She even smiled while saying that it was actually quite fun for her. Hearing such a bold response shocked Inha because she had never imagined that Juha would speak about something like that so comfortably. Not stopping there, Juha then pulled out her phone and began showing Inha the amount of money she had earned. She excitedly pointed at the screen and told Inha to look carefully at how much income she had made already. The numbers on the screen immediately surprised Inha once again. Juha proudly explained that she had earned all of that money from only a single app. After that, she started excitedly talking about her future plans. She said that when their break arrived, she wanted to go on an overseas vacation, spend money however she wanted, and finally enjoy life freely without worrying about anything. She admitted that even imagining such a luxurious future was already making her happy. While listening to Juha speak so happily, Inha slowly became consumed with jealousy. She kept thinking about how freely Juha was now spending money on herself, and how different her own life felt in comparison. Juha then asked her if she also wanted to join them for the overseas vacation during the break. Inha sadly admitted that the money she earned from her part-time job was barely enough to cover her rent every month, so a trip like that was impossible for her. After hearing that, Juha suggested that Inha should also try joining OnlyFans, because it could become a very profitable opportunity for her as well. However, Inha quickly asked if there was any other possible way to earn money besides doing that. Juha admitted that things there did not always work out perfectly either. She explained that they had recently made a video that completely failed after meeting a very strange girl during one of their sessions. Inha responded by saying that there were many weird people around these days, so Juha should be careful about such situations. While continuing the conversation, Juha suddenly mentioned that she had recently started investing in cryptocurrency too. She explained that the profits were actually very decent, and that she had been making a good amount of money through it recently. Hearing that immediately caught Inha's attention. Curious and tempted, she asked Juha whether she should simply buy the same cryptocurrency that Juha had invested in. Juha casually replied that she probably could, but warned her to remain careful while investing money into it. Even after hearing the warning, Inha became extremely excited by the possibility of earning money so quickly. Shortly afterward, she left the cafe while continuously thinking about cryptocurrency. After she walked away, Juha quietly thought to herself that Inha had been acting strangely lately, and that something about her behavior felt unusual. Meanwhile, Inha hurried back home, while her thoughts remained completely focused on cryptocurrency investments. As she looked at the investment page on her phone, she kept thinking that the entire thing felt very complicated. She even wondered if Juha should have simply told her exactly which cryptocurrency to buy directly. Despite her nervousness and confusion, she still completed her first purchase and anxiously waited to see what would happen next. Only a short while later, Inha suddenly noticed that she had already earned 500,000 won. The sight shocked her completely. She stared at the screen in disbelief while thinking that earning such a huge amount of money with such a small investment felt unbelievable to her. Her mind immediately began filling with even bigger dreams. She convinced herself that if she had invested a much larger amount of money from the beginning, she could have earned far more than what people were making through OnlyFans. At that moment, she suddenly received a call from her mother. During the call, her mother asked her to send money in advance, while also assuring her that she was not in any kind of trouble and would return the money later. After seeing her investment grow so quickly, Inha became even more obsessed with the idea of making money through cryptocurrency. She started borrowing money from several of her friends as well so that she could invest even more. As time passed, she continued earning larger amounts of money through her investments. The more money she made, the more her imagination grew. She started dreaming about going on luxurious overseas vacations during the break, buying expensive branded items, and finally living the glamorous life she had always wanted for herself. Just imagining that future was enough to make her happy and excited. She became fully convinced that she would continue multiplying her money many more times by the following day. However, the next morning everything completely fell apart. As soon as Inha woke up and checked her investments, her expression instantly froze in shock. Within seconds, she realized that she had lost an enormous amount of money overnight. The profits she had been so excited about had completely disappeared, and she was now left with almost nothing. The overwhelming realization immediately broke her emotionally, and she started crying uncontrollably after understanding that all of her money was gone. A few days later, Junyoung was slowly walking out of the university building after finishing another exhausting exam session. The moment he stepped outside, he let out a tired sigh while rubbing his face in frustration. His mind felt completely drained after spending days continuously studying without proper rest. As he walked across the campus, he kept thinking to himself that the exams had suddenly hit him extremely hard out of nowhere, and that he was physically and mentally exhausted because of them. He felt like his energy had completely disappeared over the last few days. While continuing to walk, he also thought about Juha, and quietly admitted to himself that it was probably a good thing she had stayed relatively quiet during the exam period. Unlike before, she had not pressured him much about filming workout videos lately, and had been surprisingly easygoing about postponing everything until the exams ended. Because of that, he had at least been able to focus on studying a little more seriously. Even then, he still felt unable to properly concentrate because the stress from the exams kept overwhelming him. He convinced himself that he only needed a few more days, and then everything would finally calm down again. Completely lost in his thoughts, Junhyung barely paid attention to the people walking around him until he suddenly noticed someone familiar passing nearby. When he looked carefully, he realized that it was Inha. However, something immediately felt strange about her appearance and behavior. She was staring down at her phone while walking and seemed so distracted that she was not even paying attention to her surroundings at all. Her expression looked gloomy and emotionally exhausted, almost as if she had not slept properly in days. The moment Junhyung noticed her condition, he instinctively felt worried. He tried greeting her casually, expecting her to at least acknowledge him, but Inha did not even react. She completely ignored him and kept walking forward without lifting her eyes from the phone screen. Her reaction surprised him because even though they were not especially close, she would normally still respond to him. Feeling increasingly concerned, Junhyung quickly caught up to her and tried speaking more directly. He asked whether something was wrong and told her that she really needed to pay more attention to her surroundings while walking around like that. He pointed out that she had not been attending classes lately either, which had started making him worry about her condition. Trying to sound helpful, he explained that he had wanted to check if she was okay because she did not even seem aware of the exams anymore. He even offered to write down all the important notes for her and send them later so she would not completely fall behind in class. However, the moment he finished speaking, Inha suddenly reacted coldly. Instead of appreciating his concern, she looked irritated by his words. She sharply told him that he was only acting friendly because Juha always dragged him around with her, and because of that, he probably believed she was his friend too. Her frustration quickly grew stronger as she angrily asked him whether he had a death wish. She then bluntly told him to mind his own business because he had been extremely annoying lately. After saying all of that harshly, Inha immediately walked away again without giving him any chance to properly respond. Junhyung remained standing there awkwardly while watching her leave. He felt confused and slightly offended by the sudden outburst. In his mind, he quietly thought that she was showing far too much attitude toward him. Still, after calming himself down, he admitted that she was not entirely wrong either because the two of them had never truly been close friends. He eventually convinced himself that maybe he should not have acted overly familiar with her in the first place. Meanwhile, as Inha continued walking away from him, her attention immediately returned to her phone screen again. Tears slowly formed in her eyes as she stared at the enormous losses from her cryptocurrency investments. The more she looked at the numbers, the more hopeless and desperate she felt. At that moment, her mind suddenly returned to the conversation she once had with Juha about joining OnlyFans. As all her frustration continued building inside her, she slowly convinced herself that she needed to ruin their entire arrangement by joining them herself. In her emotional state, she began blaming Junhyung for everything that had gone wrong recently and convinced herself that somehow every bad situation in her life was connected to him. Later that day, Junhyung finally returned home completely exhausted. The moment he entered his room, he immediately laid down on his bed because his body felt heavy from both studying and stress. While staring at the ceiling tiredly, he quietly thought that it actually felt nice not having any workout videos to edit for once. His mind slowly drifted toward thoughts about Juha again, and after laying there for a while, he eventually decided that maybe he should just perform a solo workout session by himself to relax a little and clear his head. As he reached for his phone, however, he suddenly realized that someone was already heading toward his place. Before he could think much about it, loud knocking suddenly came from the door. Junhyung casually shouted toward the entrance that the person already knew the passcode and that he was coming anyway. Since he expected it to be someone familiar, he opened the door without much concern. However, the moment the door opened, he froze in complete surprise after realizing that the person standing outside was actually Inha. Seeing her there unexpectedly confused him immediately because he had never imagined she would suddenly come to his house like that. Looking at her condition and behavior, he instinctively assumed that she was probably drunk. Before he could properly question her, Inha suddenly pushed her way inside the house without waiting for permission. The atmosphere immediately became tense as she aggressively accused him of being responsible for all the losses she had suffered recently. Her voice carried obvious frustration and desperation while she blamed him for ruining everything. Junhyung became completely confused by her accusations. Trying to defend himself, he reminded her that he had always helped her whenever she needed assistance during exams or assignments. He could not understand why she was suddenly treating him like the reason behind all her problems. However, before he could continue explaining himself, Inha immediately told him to shut his mouth. Without calming down at all, she suddenly declared that he was going to perform the workout session with her, and that this time, they would properly record the video as well. Hearing her say that instantly shocked Junyoung because he had never expected Inha to willingly suggest something like that herself. Even after hearing it directly, he still struggled to believe she was being serious. Despite the awkward tension between them, the two of them eventually started performing the workout session together. During the session, Inha finally admitted the real reason behind her strange behavior lately. She confessed that she had fallen into serious debt because of cryptocurrency investments, and that the situation had become far worse than she originally imagined. After hearing that explanation, Junyoung immediately grabbed her phone and checked the investment details himself. The moment he saw the coin she had invested in, he reacted with disbelief and told her that she had chosen one of the most useless cryptocurrencies in the market. He could not understand why she would put money into something so unstable. Inha then explained that Juha had recommended that cryptocurrency to her. Hearing that surprised Junyoung even more because Juha had never mentioned anything about cryptocurrency investments to him before. Realizing the situation, Inha quickly became nervous and immediately asked him not to tell Juha anything about her financial losses. She worried that Juha might start blaming herself if she learned what had happened. After hearing that concern, Junyoung quietly asked whether Inha was afraid of losing her friendship with Juha. Instead of directly answering his question, Inha simply said that filming a few workout videos should be enough to repay all the money she had lost. She sounded desperate as she tried convincing herself that she could fix everything quickly. Junyoung then estimated that around 4 videos would probably be enough to cover the amount she needed. However, Inha looked genuinely surprised after hearing that number. She admitted that she originally believed a single video could easily earn around 10 million won instantly. Junyoung quickly corrected her misunderstanding by explaining that simply uploading videos did not immediately make someone rich overnight. He reminded her that things did not work that way, and that earning money consistently still required time and luck. Even after hearing that explanation, Inha continued complaining. She pointed out that she was already agreeing to perform the workout session with him, yet she would still have to split the profits with him afterward. Hearing her words internally annoyed Junyoung because he felt like he was already doing her a favor by helping her in the first place. Still, he chose not to argue with her further because she already seemed emotionally unstable enough. Instead, he silently focused on preparing everything properly. He carefully began setting up the camera equipment around the room while making sure everything was positioned correctly for recording. Once everything was ready, he paused for a moment and seriously asked Inha one final time whether she was truly ready to go through with this decision or not. For a brief moment, Inha hesitated quietly while standing there. However, after thinking about her financial situation again, she eventually nodded and confirmed that she was ready. After that, the two of them once again began performing the workout session together while the camera recorded everything properly this time. On the other side, Juha was becoming increasingly frustrated because Junyoung had not been replying to any of her messages lately. She kept repeatedly checking her phone to see whether he had finally responded, but every time she looked at the screen, there was still nothing from him. Even though she tried to stay calm about it, she could not stop overthinking the situation. Deep down, she kept convincing herself that he was probably just busy studying for exams or occupied with something important. Still, despite trying to rationalize it, she could not completely ignore the uneasy feeling growing inside her. Meanwhile, Junyoung was spending most of his time occupied with the workout session routine alongside Inha. The two of them had become increasingly focused on filming videos together, especially because Inha was desperate to recover from the massive losses she had suffered through cryptocurrency investments. As more time passed, Junyoung slowly began reflecting on how much his life had unexpectedly changed within such a short period. While thinking quietly to himself, he realized that Inha had also started doing OnlyFans content now. Because of the money they earned together, they had already managed to repay part of the high-interest loans that were burdening her. However, all of that progress had also affected his own routine heavily. He kept delaying his studies because he constantly had to spend time editing her videos afterward. Even so, despite all the stress and exhaustion, he noticed that Inha seemed surprisingly satisfied with the results and progress they had been making together. Eventually, the exam period finally came to an end. During that time, Junyoung found himself reflecting on everything once again. He had originally believed that juggling studies with all these workout sessions and filming responsibilities would completely ruin his concentration. However, somewhat surprisingly, he realized that his focus during exams had actually remained decent. In his mind, he admitted that somehow the workout session training with Inha had strangely helped him stay mentally sharp instead of distracting him completely. The next day, after university classes ended, Inha met up with Junyoung again. The atmosphere between them had become noticeably more familiar compared to before because they had been spending so much time together recently. As they walked together, Inha asked him whether he remembered everything they had discussed earlier regarding the video preparation. Junhyung calmly replied that he remembered everything properly. After hearing that, Inha asked him whether they really needed to include all those details for the video recording as well. In response, Junhyung explained that yes, they did need them because he personally thought the videos looked much better whenever those elements were included properly. Although Inha still looked somewhat uncertain, she eventually accepted his explanation and continued walking beside him. A little while later, Inha, Juha, and Junhyung all arrived together outside a new location they were planning to visit. The moment they reached the place, Juha immediately became excited while looking around. She cheerfully commented that the location was perfect for filming videos and enthusiastically mentioned that she specifically wanted to wear her favorite outfit there because she thought it would look good on camera. Meanwhile, Inha stood nearby looking visibly confused and slightly awkward while listening to Juha speak so casually and confidently. Despite the strange atmosphere, the three of them eventually decided to head inside together. Once they entered, they even jokingly asked whether they could receive a friend discount for the services there. As all of that was happening, Junhyung quietly reflected on how troublesome and complicated everything in his life had become recently. He felt as though situations kept developing in ways he never expected. While thinking about all of that, something suddenly caught his attention. To his complete surprise, they ended up meeting Jihyun, who was already present there before they arrived. The moment she saw them, she casually greeted everyone. Seeing her there immediately shocked Junhyung because he had never imagined that their previous waxing session experience would somehow lead to all of them meeting together like this again. Now, unexpectedly, everyone had gathered there for waxing once more. Juha then introduced Jihyun in a playful manner by calling her the legendary bully from their high school days. Hearing such an introduction instantly surprised Junhyung even more because he did not expect Juha to describe her like that so openly. Jihyun casually explained that she already knew Junhyung because the two of them had lived very close to each other during childhood. She mentioned that it had been a very long time since they last met properly. After that, she looked toward Inha and Juha before teasingly asking Junhyung whether both of them were already his female friends now. Feeling awkward from the sudden question, Junhyung simply answered, yes. Jihyun then turned toward Inha and Juha and jokingly asked whether they were truly friends with someone like him because, according to her, both of them were far too pretty for Junhyung. Hearing those comments immediately made Junhyung feel even more uncomfortable because the entire situation had suddenly become incredibly awkward for him. In his mind, he kept thinking that everything about this encounter felt strange. Afterward, the three of them eventually went inside the waxing room together, where the waxing session was soon started by Jihyun herself.